Hello, everyone, and welcome back to... Well, I was about to say RimWorld there. I've been playing too many games this morning. Welcome back to Factorio and to our routing station, which you may notice is looking a little bit cleaner than the last time you saw it. I took some time off camera just to tidy up the circuitry. It's effectively exactly the same circuit. In fact, it's laid out more or less the same. It's just compressed a little bit, so it'll be a little bit kinder on blueprints. I've also had a chance to look at some of the comments, and there were a few issues raised. It was fantastic to read that people have been playing along and have been designing the stations that I've been showing along with me, and they have noticed a couple of edge cases in its operation. Now, immediately upon noting that there was a problem, I rushed off and I spent about half an hour finding solutions to the problems, and promptly went back to the comments full of glee about to share my wisdom when I read the full comments and noticed that, oh, you weren't simply telling me there was a problem. You were telling me there was a problem, and this is how you fixed it. Well, now don't I feel silly? Well done. By the way, there were actually quite a few people who encountered similar issues, and whilst many of the solutions were very similar, quite a lot of people solved some of the specific problems using stations. We will go over those problems in this episode as well. But also, it was nice to see that people were finding different kind of solutions, more or less in the same sort of direction, but just slight variations. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy building circuit networks fresh every time I start a new game, is every time I do it, I find a slightly more efficient way of building the network. Through repetition, but not copying, I improve. Now, the chief problem that was discovered is that for some reason, now I've actually looked on the forums into possibly why this may be a case, but for a reason, when the signals are opened, specifically when stackers are involved, trains will sometimes bypass an open stacker that has several trains in it, but still does have room in favor of trying to go down a different route, even though that has a red signal. Now, from what I can tell, that has something to do with the way that the train's pathfinding works, in that it will favor routes that have less trains and, in fact, less signals between it and the station it's trying to get to. Now, that does raise some future problems. Now, initially, I think the problem may only exist with the stackers themselves, but it could be a case that the problems will exist for any kind of system where there's a lot of signals between the routing station and the ultimate destination. So we may have to adjust some plans in the future. The other problem that was listed is, well, actually we'll get to that in a moment. Let's go ahead and just set up a couple of test trains so we can try and show these solutions rather than discuss them, shall we? Because I do wax verbose sometimes. Let's get these down. We'll just set up 2 empty cargo wagons. It'll be nice and simple. Now, I've streamlined the instructions. They simply wait for a green signal, then they move on. And that is really all there is to it. Do I have any fuel on me? I do not. Well, drat. Well, since I'm going for a bit of a long walk anyway. The second problem was in the timings with the trains leaving the station. Sometimes the trains didn't leave enough time for the signals to switch around correctly based on the train's contents. Now, again, I mentioned that in the last episode that you would be able to fix that problem, that it would possibly be a problem, and that one solution is to simply have the train... Why did I run all the way down there? I've got a specific little stacking box there for the reason. But one way is to have the train have a wait on the signal. Now, that is useful and also not at the same time. It doesn't solve the problem in the smartest possible way. It's basically a brute force problem. We will load you up with fuel, but I'm not yet going to activate you. We're just going to leave you there for a second. Now, there are lots of different ways you can do it. If you want to try and keep the timings as tight as possible, and quite often this will be the case, you can set up a clock. Now, the problem with a clock, do I have a clock set up here? Actually, I do. Fantastic. Let's just pop a clock down. Now, we're not going to actually activate them. Well, I suppose we could. I guess there's no reason not to, since the wiring will all be taken care of by itself, which is rather awesome. But there we are. We've got a clock. Now, let's say that we had the idea that the train should leave on some arbitrary tick, remembering that a tick is typically 1/60th of a second, depending on how many combinators it has to go through, each one halves that effectively. It adds an extra tick to the length of time the signal takes to move through. Just be aware of that, because it can come, trip you up sometimes, but generally about 60th of a second. Let's say you wanted it to wait 3 seconds. That is quite a long time, but just for argument's sake. Now, there's no guarantee that when the train arrives that it's going to be at the beginning of the clock cycle. It could arrive on the 60th tick, so it's already burnt 1 second. It could arrive with only 4 ticks left to go before it hits that 3-second tick amount that you've set of 180 ticks. So that isn't the best way of setting it up, just having a clock and then having it activate on a certain number as we've got here. So what we can do instead, we will set up a clock which will activate when and only when there is a train in the station. So let's pop these down. Now, the easiest way to tell if a train is in the station is there a train signal? And if there is, then I would like to output 1. Just 1 C. I like using C for clocks because clock. That will then be passed along to our actual clock, and which effectively creates a memory cell. And we want to output however much C is, so the input count, but we only want to do so when C is below the tick amount. Now, for the sake of the demonstration, let's say set the tick to some arbitrarily large number. You could easily use the train for this. This is much more a case if you want to tie the timings down tightly to your circuit network. But for the sake of the demonstration, let's say 300 ticks. In fact, let's say 299. So we've got quite a few seconds wait here for the train, so that we'll have time to observe that the circuit is working. Now, since it is less than or equal to 299, the tick will end when it outputs 299, which will be added to the one that's already there, which will create a total tick of 300. At that point, the circuit will break, it'll skip a tick, and then it'll start from 1 again. So what we want over here then is a little output. We don't want to force the train out on the 300th tick. We want to check if there is a green signal. So we're just going to pass this along here. This will have however many green or red signals exist. And over here, we want to have something along the lines of, if C is exactly equal to 300, then I would like you to output however much input count of green, and only green. So if we get past any other signal from this arithmetic combinator here, it doesn't care, because it's only going to output how many green signals we have. And we simply hook these up like so, and then back to the station. And that should be fine. That'll output the green signal if there is one waiting, and the train will then leave. We can easily demonstrate this by turning this train on. And let's see how you go. Let's cross the train like a fool. There we are. All of the signals are updated. Now, this one may not go up here. We'll see. No, it did, because there is at least one available route. Now, a couple of people have mentioned that once there were 3 trains, specifically 3, that's when things broke down. I didn't actually check that. I was far more obsessed with just filling the stack and then just seeing how that will work. But it'll be interesting to see. Now, the way that we can fix that problem. In fact, let's have you come along. Go along there, and we'll see how this goes. This may go up there. It may not. Either way, I want more trains in the system anyway, so we'll see. Now, which way are you going to go? No, you are actually going to go up there. Fine. Marvelous. Well, do I have enough train stuff? No, I don't. I need to go and grab more then. We need to start filling up our trains as much as possible. I'll also take a stack of liquid trains as well. At this point, we should see a bit of a problem arise. Now, once again, we're going to have to set up the trains just down here. I really should stop picking up the locomotives, because I'm not going through the locomotives nearly as fast as I'm going through the cargo wagons. Right, and we also want 2 liquid trains there. There we are. Let's grab these, paste them across, and I'm just going to add 1 liquid train. Sure, you can just go straight away, and we'll add you in there, and you can go as soon as you're given leave to do so. Now, I have tightened up the signals by here just to make sure that no train goes across this signal before it's had ample time to reset the memory switch. Now, what we should see is a bit of a signal chaos, and this should try and head up there. Yes, it is. And there we go. The circuit is broken. It is not performing the way it was intended. So let's just reset this, pull it all the way back. We don't actually mind if this maintains its current memory of what was on the train, because that hasn't changed. All we want to do here is fix this problem. Now, the solution that I came up with, and it seems that quite a lot of other people quickly came to as well, is we can use stations as kind of a faux signal, if you will. Okay, there we go. We've cleaned up the old signals. Ooh, 2 turrets are currently attacking something. That's fine. We've cleaned up the old signals because we are going to be replacing them with entire stations instead. Now, a couple of the people who've mentioned that they also came to the conclusion of using stations mentioned that they basically hot-wired the stations to always be on. They were simply using them as a new nearest place to go. I can only imagine that they had them behind the signals so that whichever signal was green led to a pretty close station, and then from that point on the train would pass through. That all makes a lot of sense, but I would hazard that there is perhaps a more elegant solution. Now, the way I'm going to set this up is we'll pop these down behind. We don't strictly need to see them, I suppose. Though, that being said, this actually comes on to another thing, and that is a slight mistake in the way that I've set these up. And let's address that now since we're here anyway. That is, there's really not enough room. If I've got a signal here, if a train has nowhere to go, it's just going to stand here and block this entire stacker, and that is going to be particularly bad. Now, we can fix that using circuit if we want to, or alternatively, we could probably fix it by doing this. Let me just check. Is that enough room? Yes, I would say that that would give me enough room for a train to reach this signal and not be blocking this. Let me just lay this down and we'll see how that goes. One there, and then 1, 2, can we get another one in? No. Oh, come on. Oh, please. Scallywag. Apparently no. I will have to lay it down. Well, I suppose... Haha, I know what I can do. I can manually drive you, can't I? That's going to solve my problem. Perfect. Right, let's go up there. There we are. And around the corner. There we go. Just a little bit more. Tiny bit more. Just squeeze in there. A little bit more. Come on. About there. About there. There again. Maybe a little tiny bit more. When would you stop here? I wonder. If I get out, I've already effectively blocked that signal, and now I turn you on to automatic. You should just drive right up to the edge there. Are you blocking this? You are not anymore. That is technically working. Perfect. That is all I wanted to see. Okay, so that's going to make this a little bit better then. That was bugging me quite a lot. We could solve that using circuitry. And in fact, I will also show that solution as well, since we know that this solution could work. But you could just move the signals all the way down here if you particularly wanted to. And that would solve the problem, since there would be enough room. If you've built exactly what I've built, like a derp. I'm sorry if I infected you with my derpitude. But what we can do here is we'll have these signals built behind the stations. We don't strictly need to see them, because these stations are going to be activated or deactivated based on the signal. We'll just hook these up now. The red wire heading back is the one that we want to send the signal, whether the signal is green or not, back down. Let's hook that one up there. There we go. And this one should be closed if O is anything other than 1. There we go. And then copy that across. Copy that across over here, but this one should be 3 instead. There we are. Now, this will also be reading the signal down there. Oh, it will be in a moment. These are not going to be normal node stations. I think that we're probably going to be seeing that this is only a problem where stackers are involved, but should that not be the case, then I can always change this up. So we want to enable or disable this station based on the green signal. If the green signal is better than 0, then enable it. There we go. Quite simple. All of these are now node stations. Some of them are node stations which have been disabled. And then we just pass this along. Now, you might be wondering, isn't there going to be some data flow back? No, because the red wire is the only one that's connecting these signals and then passing down. Otherwise, it's just the single green wire. So they are two distinct circuits. Each one is reading signals, what state the signals are in, but only the red one is also carrying data from the other signals, and that one doesn't touch each individual station. So it'll lock them on or off as the case may be. Now, let's activate you, and we should see that you happily go up here now. That station is active, so it's the nearest station for pathfinding, and there we go. It just pauses briefly, then moves on into the stations, and that's grand. Okay, now I did mention that we would be able to fix this problem down here using circuits, and we certainly can. Right now we're passing down 01. What we want then here is just a quick interim point. We'll pop that circuit down there, remove this green wire from there, like so, and then this one can move down instead. And all I want here is we will output O, whatever O happens to be, as long as red is less than 4. There we go. We're effectively via the circuit network creating a chain signal out of this signal. If you recall from my earlier episodes regarding signals, chain signals never, you can't manipulate chain signals, you can only read from them. So it makes them unsuitable for the purposes that we want to use them for. Let's pop that down there. Can we reach? There we go. Perfect. And I don't actually particularly want this to be part of the electricity network, so let's get rid of that. There we go. So since all of these are green, this is allowed to pass down whatever happens to be there, as long as red is less than 4, or in fact, as long as green is greater than 0. As long as there is a green signal there, then it should pass it along. And we can quickly test this once again by dropping down this. We've got one green signal there. If we pop that down, then we should see that this is now locked and is no longer passing that along. It would pass down 01 normally. We'll just release another train and we'll quickly see how that works. Now, given this, we should see that this train will correctly go to the overflow. We'll see. This is the moment of truth, whether this solution is worth its salt. I really should practice this a little bit more before I jump into recording. I get halfway to a solution, I'm like, yeah, that seems about right, let's go. Doing it live. And then, of course, there's that moment of peril. But it's also a moment of great joy. I don't know, it's the thrill seeker in me. Coding live, where all of my mistakes will be preserved for eternity on YouTube. Right, it looks like everything is working. This shouldn't go... Ah, fantastic, I approve. Right now, if we take away one of these, whomp, that should work when it comes back through, and our stacker should now be correct. Without ever having a case where it's going to just block this little junction. Go ahead, you. Head up there. Go on. Skedaddle. Go. That's going to... There are reasons why you shouldn't have that set the way I've got it set right now. That is far too long of a wait. But again, it does demonstrate the network a little bit. So there you go. There's the circuit solution, or you could simply move the signal to somewhere that isn't quite as dumb. Forward planning. It's useful if you can ever remember to do it. But there we go. So those are all of the solutions as far as I can see to the problems that were suggested. Now, that being done, you know what we need to do next? We need a new blueprint book. Because we definitely need to make this easier for ourselves. There we go. The station's blueprint book. And I would like a new blueprint. And I would like to start it about here. There we go. All the way down to... let's just go as far as this. We don't need everything else, honestly. And yet I feel that we do. Perhaps a little bit need everything else. Let's see. Sure. Let's grab all of that. We'll take these away. And I'll also remove this for the time being. Simply because I only... Well, I guess we could leave that in there. Since we likely will want some sort of feedback from the signals. Sure, that's good. We'll make this... let's change that to a station. And we'll change the letter to R for routing. There we go. Perfect. And there we have our basic routing station setup. Lovely. Oop, that's the wrong one. We want to go in this one instead. There we are. Over here, we can grab this whole thing as well, I guess. We could do that, actually. Sure, all right. Though we'll want to slightly set it up differently, just for the sake of keeping things nice and tidy. It's at this point that we wonder, are we going to include a station for every single one? And I guess it's not a terrible idea. What do they require to make? A little bit of steel versus... Well, actually, the costs aren't that different, I suppose. Yeah, okay, we can leave it in there, I guess. For the sake of making things nice and easy in the future. I'm going to pop one of these down. That is really the only thing we need to go with. And we actually need a second one behind. What we have achieved over here using just a constant combinator, we need to explicitly achieve with variable inputs in the future. So we'll set this up something like that, and we'll probably want to hook it up to the larger power poles as well. And that will rot my brain. So let's just quickly disconnect you. Even though this is super temporary, let's disconnect them anyway. Now, this one is going to want to, well, I suppose we want to take whatever we've got for each above 0, output each 1. I only want one thing to be compared, because we're comparing that one thing to the one signal from the train and then checking whether we have any of those more than 2. And this one will literally be a copy there. So for anything that is equal to 2 exactly, then output 01, and then that will control the signal down here. Let's grab you, paste that over. There we are. Nice and simple. And that also passes down to the train itself. We would then want that signal passed back along. I could, I suppose, have that somewhere around here. It'll be a little bit easier for me if I just hook that up like this, though. Well, yeah. We would want that signal coming across from here. Now, how are we going to be passing the guide versus the request? I believe we set the request up on the red line. So the guide is actually going to be on a green signal wire. So we're going to need to bear that in mind. There's going to be 2 types of signals. A green wire coming from the routing station, and then a green wire just moving along the whole electric pole network that is guiding any particular trains to their destination. So we do need to bear that in mind. We don't want to mix these signals up, so let's switch the signal that they're working on. So we'll have the guide signal coming through, just letting this this combinator strip that down to just one of each individual type of signal. We'll probably pop this down there just for the sake of it, since we're going to want green wires and red wires moving along. Why are they reversed? There we go. That's a little bit better. There we are. So the green signal will be passed down, and that will activate this signal based on whether we have a green signal coming in from the side, possibly from the, well, directly from the routing station itself. So that is more or less the signal setup for the future. So let's grab that as a blueprint as well. There we go. Nice and simple. And this will be... well, let's actually use a signal for that. So this is a routing signal, whereas the other is a routing station, even though it's technically a station as well. There we go. Perfect. That should all be fine. Now, don't worry too much if you didn't quite follow the reasoning behind setting this up the way I've set it. Hopefully I did explain it okay, and it does make it a little bit harder not being able to see the signal here, but generally speaking, this is the way that we're going to want to be passing the signals down. So I'm just saving myself a little bit of time in the future in already laying down these cables. The green cable will be a signal from any potential station that has requested a train that is meant as a guiding beacon to help the train route to that station. The red wire is going to carry any pulsed signals which are sent to the dispatchers in order to just say, send one train either carrying this cargo or one liquid train specifically. I don't want that going along a single signal. Otherwise, you'll end up with just crazy things happening at the dispatcher. It won't know what day it is. There'll be constant signals coming in demanding trains. It won't know whether it sent them or how many it sent for each type. It would be a nightmare. We could actually make this look a little bit less janky by doing that. There we go. Perfect, I think. Kind of. Sort of, I think. Right, a couple of people have actually asked me, please make a beeline for night vision goggles. It just occurred to me, since we're going into nighttime again, where would night vision goggles be exactly? That's a nuclear power. That is definitely not night vision goggles. 100% not night vision goggles. Have I already got night vision goggles? I don't think I have. No. Right, where are you? Because apparently the nighttime is a little bit too difficult for most people to see. Yeah, I can certainly see why that would be the case. Where are you? Modular armor would likely be somewhere down here, since you're going to need them. There we go. Alright, so we're going to want plastics first then. So let's start on that. We will make a beeline straight for modular armor, and specifically for night vision goggles, just so that it's a little bit easier to see when I'm doing circuitry at night. But with that all finally done, oh my lord, it has been a while setting up this station. I know. We'll get there. We'll sort all of this out. I would like this to be turned off for now. For now, any train that actually ends up at that overflow is there for a bad reason, and I need to resolve it. Now, we've got a good chunk of stone down here, and that is the goal of our first mining base. We've also got a decent bit of iron up there that we could also hit. How are our iron? Well, we've got 250k there, 122k there, like barely any stone whatsoever. And we're going to need a fair old whack of stone, I think it's fair to say. We've got a couple of rails on me. We could certainly make use of that. How much bullets have we got? We've got a couple of those too. Well, we've got lots of gun turrets actually. I'm going to drop off some bric-a-brac that's in my inventory, pick up some more rails, and we're going to start making our way over to the first mining base that we're going to set up.
Drat, I'm a blast. They've decided to attack an area where I didn't have any guns. No, my mines.
Well, Drat, I'm going to have to expand down the defensive area there then. Okay, let's get rid of you. I had to go through a couple of biters in order to get to the stone pile while I was laying down the tracks, and that may have annoyed them a little bit. Is there more? There shouldn't be. I don't believe so. Apparently there are still things being damaged, but I don't see them if they are. Either way, that was quite unfortunate. get all of these repaired. There we go. Waste not, want not. Though, on that note, we don't actually need all of these down here anymore. We've actually started to exhaust this field a little bit, which is a bit of a concern, to be sure. Let's get that up there. That is also gone. Might as well clear this area up whilst I'm here anyway. There we are. And then I'll have more of these miners ready for the next time. There we go, and I think we've taken care of all on this side. That's actually quite nice. There we are. And there we go. In fact, we don't need that splitter there anymore as a result. Right, okay, well, slight disruption notwithstanding, things are generally going okay. Building up a railway is kind of busy work, really. It's not particularly the most engaging, to be certain, so I wasn't going to include much of it, if any of it at all, actually. Right, we want to continue down modular armor and then ultimately to night vision equipment. It isn't actually going to take us that long. I mean, ultimately we're going to need to get plastics set up before I can do any of it, I'm fairly certain. But let's actually see. Yes, we need advanced circuits, and advanced circuits almost certainly require plastics. There we are, yeah. So it's going to take us a little bit, sure. Right, well, we could set up the turrets down the bottom there. That might be a good plan, and I think it is indeed a plan that I'm going to use. So, do we have the turrets on a blueprint yet? We might not, you know. We don't. Very well. New blueprint book then, please, and thank you. There we go. Pop that there. Oop. Let's get you. The fences. Hopefully that's spelled correctly. And then we'll just grab the entire thing here. Sure. Well, yeah, there we are. There's the other pole there. I do like having the poles in the blueprints simply because it saves me so much time with having to wire everything up. We'll just have the basic defense turret in here. Basic fire base. There we go. And we are good to go. Right, I'm going to need to pop that in this book and then drop that onto my inventory. And then we can simply set that up, hook it all up to the wires, and we should be cooking with fire. And let's go down. It seemed like the attack approached from this direction, so this should be good enough for us. Now, unfortunately, it does necessitate me building all of this by hand. I know that's not exactly the most thrilling, but it does demonstrate how easy having the blueprints there makes everything. Let's pop down a couple of these. Ooh, which way are they facing? I think they're facing down. Hopefully I'm right about that, because if not, it's going to be annoying. There we go. Pop this one down there as well. Right, we're going to need to run... Ooh, do I have enough is a question. That's quite important to ask right now. I think I do. Wow, this is a long way down. Normally, if I wasn't being so lazy... Oh my lord, the laziness. Normally that would really not be the way you use this particular blueprint. It was not meant for this kind of long travel from one point to another. But again, my laziness is winning out right now. There we are. And we'll just hook that up on that side. So at least we have all of that done. The actual setup there. Where are my basic electric poles? There we go. And we are going to totally be using these ones. Because, again, lazy. Also, the blueprint has been made with them, so we do actually need to preserve that, otherwise it doesn't wire properly. Right, there we go. Next up, we're going to want some inserters. Got to make sure that these are all pointing in the right direction, unfortunately. Once you've got robots, this becomes so fantastically easy. You just drop down a blueprint, your robots construct everything, wire it all for you, and everyone is happy. The world is happy for you, in fact. It's that easy. But right now, we are doing things the old-fashioned way. All right, let's get you in there. Looks like you are set up there. There we are. If you don't orient these correctly, then I don't believe the wiring holds. And with something like this that I built so long ago, it would take me like 5 minutes to refresh my memory on the wiring. That is one of the downsides to doing everything kind of live. You just... Unfortunately, these are not deeply practiced builds because it changes slightly every single time I build one of them, which isn't great. But with that, we can now make use of these fantastically longer reach poles. So there we are. That will help us a little bit. Can I get it over there? Yes, I can. Glorious. Let's do that then. Now I need to run the green down. Actually, I need to run both, realistically speaking. Oh! Nope. Naughty. Bad. You coming from over there? You are. Disapprove. Disapprove. Also, modular armor needs to be updated straight to night vision. There we go. Night vision, and once we actually set up oil, which won't be far behind everything else at this point, we will be all good and done. Wait a second. How's that? Ah, right, okay. It gets very hard with alt press so that we can see the circuitry. It gets very hard to see what wires are actually connected to what. There we go. Let's get you connected up. There we are. And doing it this way is going to minimize the amount of time that the network might be confused because signals are going the wrong places. There's that. And then there's that. There we are. That should now have prompted the ammunition manufactorum to kick into gear and start spewing. Can we see any on the belts? Yeah, there we are. They are actually doing it. I'm just going to leave you guys to it, and hopefully you're going to do a good job for me. If not, the Emperor will be displeased. Okay, as you can see, I have finished setting up the train line along here. You can see from the blue dots on the map, I won't have to walk it for you, but this line travels all the way down, and it is the same setup all the way along. That is, a red and a green wire is traveling along this circuit all the way back up to here. Now, you may be wondering, why have I got a weird turn there? I will get to that in a moment. But first and foremost, let's cover what we've got here. This is, for all intents and purposes, a fairly basic setup here for station loading, and in fact unloading, if I'm perfectly honest. Let's get a little bit more light down here though. Let me just pop these down there and there. Very nice. There we go. Now we can see what we're doing. All of these are steel chests, and they have a fast inserter to load onto the train, slow inserters loading into the chest. There's no particular reason why I've done that. It's just that I generally feel that we're going to have more incoming rather than outgoing. Outgoing is going to happen in bursts, so I want that to happen very, very quickly so the train can leave the station. But it is just going to be a constant, steady stream of input materials, so we don't need them to be being handled quite as quickly. So that's the reason why all of that is set up that way. In fact, there is a slight other reason as well, and that is because we're going to be forcing this to load evenly, and we may as well cover that since it is also a bit of a circuit magic, though it's very, very well known magic. Pretty much all Factorio wizards learn this as one of their first spells, whereas the rest of the stuff that I'm doing is largely, well, I'm not going to say it's advanced because that's kind of tooting my own horn really, but it's less commonly practiced magic, more esoteric spells of my own making, which may or may not be useful. Ah, shush. It's fine. I have fun doing it, and hopefully you do too. Otherwise, why are you here? But there we go. This has also been set up. Oh, it hasn't been set up as a node station. My lord, why have I not done that? Let me get all of that handled. The quickest way to make sure everything is set up correctly, just add it to a circuit now. Oh no, there we go. It's perfect. Okay, that's fine. It must have just been the name that was not set. Right, the way that we're going to force everything to load evenly. Now, what I mean by evenly is that It'll generally make sure that all chests have the same amount of materials in them, and if one chest gets more than the others, then the inserter leading to that chest will be disabled. This is, again, as I was saying, fairly standard practice, and as a result, it's really, really easy. Though, interestingly, we are going to want the result of this stored for a different reason as well. So let's actually set that up. We're going to need an arithmetic combinator, and normally that would be all you would need, but we're going to be doing a couple of other things with it. Well, actually, let's just set that up along here. We just need an arithmetic combinator that will grab the sum total of all of the chests. We want to know how much stuff is in all of these. So let's grab the red wire and move along each of the chests. Now, we're going to want all of the chests hooked up to this. By the way, this station can hold a fantastically ridiculous capacity of goods. You really don't need this much. Actually, that rots my brain a little bit. Let's have that going across here so that it's nice and high up. Because that makes it look a little bit more, to me, like it's not going to cause the train to derail or something. There we are. I just think that when you're having to cross a track, it is better to cross it via an electric pole if you've got a signal wire, because it's higher up. It casts a deeper shadow, thus letting you know that it's much higher up. Now, let me just make sure that one is connected. Yes, it's a little bit hard to see because everything is so close together. But there we go. So right now, this will be feeding the total of all of the contents of the chest. Now, just be aware that stone stacks, like most ores, to 50. Cargo wagon, how much has that got? I'm fairly certain one of these has 40. I'm quickly going to make one just so we can double check, but I'm pretty certain that this has a storage slot size of 40. Yes, there we are. These steel chests each have 48. Every one of these chests can hold the entire contents of a wagon and then some. And there are 12 per wagon. The potential for this station is to have... it is absolutely ridiculous. We could have 12 train loads just sat here waiting for trains. So we're also going to have to address that for numerous reasons. There are a couple of things that we're going to need the logic of this system to be able to take care of. Now, we are at this point going to run all of the input inserters. We don't care about unloading evenly because for all intents and purposes it doesn't matter. As long as we're loading evenly, then the chest will always be even. Even if the first wagon is unloaded most from the left side than the right side for some reason, it shouldn't be. But let's just say that it is. Eventually the system would balance itself back out, so that's all fine. And you notice how I had the chests cross at the top and the inserters cross at the bottom. That way these cables are never crossing even though they're the same color. So now we're feeding all of that to our inserters. The final one, and this is the most finicky, is we must individually connect up every single inserter. Okay, now then, all the wiring has been done. Oh my lord, that took a while. And we are now going to just test the system. As you can see, I've pulled all of the stone out. It is currently being accepted, and in terms of the output signal, what are we outputting exactly? Can we see that perhaps? What are you currently outputting? The input signal is 29, but nothing is going out. There we go. Output signal of -1. Of course. The reason for the weirdness there is that when something is exactly 0, it doesn't emit. It doesn't send out a signal. It is effectively completely null. But there we are. The arms are now all working in unison. As they go above the average, they stop working. The average is currently -2, and so if they've got 3 in there, then they're above 1, whereas that one is down, and there we are. And that's the way it's just going to very evenly load all of these, and that will avoid situations where the front of the train is massively full, but the back is largely empty, because you're not going to be moving a full train load then. The train will have to sit in the station for a long time as things accumulate behind it, and eventually the rear of the train fills up. Now then, so we've got a signal telling us exactly how much stone is currently stored. That's very, very useful information. Let's go ahead and bring this out. So it's going to be a little bit easier for us to see the logic that we're working with. Now, we do actually care about that number quite a lot, in fact, because we want to activate this based on the amount of... we want to summon a train based on the amount of stone stored. We don't want to bring a train over needlessly. So first and foremost, let's hook that up. Now, if the station has more stone than a full train's load, if you recall, a cargo wagon has 40 storage slots. Most ores, stone included, can stack up to 50. So 40 times 50, you get 2,000. We have 3 wagons, so a nice 6,000. So if this is above or equal to 6,000, then that is going to trigger the summoning of a train, but not yet. First and foremost, we want to emit the correct signal. Now, we don't want to call stone. We want to say, I want an empty train to pick these up. This is a loading station for any particular cargo. If you passed out a stone signal, then you would, in fact, summon a train with stone loaded onto it. Which is exactly the opposite of what we want. So we need to emit a cargo signal at that point. But we don't want to simply summon a continuous line of empty trains to pick up this. We want to send that out only on a pulse. And as you may remember, that's very, very easy for us to set up with a pulse generator. So we'll actually do something along those lines now. So this one would be if any of the input signals meets the condition, it will output true. It is false when there are no input signals. Whereas if we used anything else, though actually in this particular case, we know exactly what we're summoning. So if C is greater than 0, then output, let's say this on 1. And there are pros and cons to making a station very specific to the job that it's going to be doing. But there are also pros to making a station very universal. And you might notice that a lot of the setup that I've gone for is with the idea of every station being able to do everything. For the time being, we're just going to set up this station to work specifically with stone. But you can set up the universal stations, and that will be the next one that we set up. But there is a lot more to those, because again, if you're going to set it up to be able to handle any type of cargo, you're also going to want to set it to be able to handle multiple types of cargo simultaneously, and that does involve a little bit more. So I just want to go over the basic logic behind a single type of cargo station to start with. So that will pass, if C is greater than 0, then pass out a red signal, and as long as the red signal is not 1, let's set that up, then you can pass along everything on a 1. That should be reasonable. Though, let's just see. Yeah, that should all work. So everything goes out on a 1. Let's hook all of this up and actually see if that works. So the first thing I want to do, hook those two up like so. So right now, it's not going to be outputting anything. Let's actually reduce this to a much more manageable number, like 500. I think we had at least that much stone. Yes, we did. So there we go. That's passing it along. It's passing out an output signal of a single 1 point there. Now, if we hook this up on this side, that output signal should stop. There we go. And if we want to... well, let's just set up a very, very simple memory cell just to double check that everything is working as intended. So pass that down, and this should just take everything, multiply it by 1, and output it again. So all we do is we'll just hook this up, and we should see just 1 C over there. There we go. And then if we do it again, 2 C. Perfect. System is working as intended, but it isn't quite ready yet. Now, this would be passed along, and this signal would be the red signal. this signal would go all the way back up to the stackers and request the right kind of train based on whether it's requesting cargo or an unloaded train or a fluid train, etc., etc. Now, we have to guard against one particular situation, however. When a train has pulled in, we're going to be loading that train. Now, if all of the crates are full, then it's going to be only 11 trains worth of cargo is in the station, not 12. Oh, well, that's terrible. But it's not going to drop below the threshold and then creep back over it. But in the case where there was just a full train's load of stone here, cargo train came along and it was being loaded, it's conceivable, and in fact quite likely on the current setup, that it would load below the 6,000 threshold. And in that moment, it's possible that we would load back up to it at the same time. In that same instant as it gets loaded, as this drops below 6,000 total, it would creep back up once all of these turned back on. As a result, we might summon a train whilst there's still a train in the station. We don't want that. We want to effectively completely shut down the signal whenever there is a train in the station. And there's two reasons for that. One is you don't want multiple trains all trying to cram into the same loaded station. And two, when that first train leaves, we want to completely reevaluate, do we have a full train's load of stone here? If we'd only just gotten to a full train's load, then we won't. We'll be at like 500 maybe or something like that. But if we had gotten to the point where we had like 11 trains worth of stone here, one comes and picks her up, but we're still left with 10 train loads of stone. That in itself won't generate a new signal because that only triggers when the threshold of 6,000 is crested. So we want to completely cut this circuit and then turn it back on when the train leaves. And that's actually remarkably easy to do, which is very, very fortunate for us, really, when you think about it. Right, we'll do that by having a simple setup over here. Just bring that right along over there. I don't want this hooked up to the power though, because it's just going to make me my brain itch a little bit. So let's, in fact, we don't even want the power moving down here. If I'm perfectly honest, we want this to be completely powerless. That sounds a bit bad, really, when you think about it. Right, we want a red wire. It doesn't really matter. It could be a green wire in this instance, all the way up there. And this is simply going to read whether there's a train in the station. Now, before this wire passes information along... actually, no. We do want a green wire so that they're not going to cross the streams. We all know that could possibly lead to you defeating a god, or it might lead to nuclear Armageddon and destruction of the entire human race. So, yeah, let's just play it safe, shall we? There's no need to be too gung-ho with that. Right, so we want a simple decider combinator. As long as there is no train in here, as long as train is, well, actually, we could just have, as long as train is above 0, whatever, then output however much stone we have. So there we are, input count. And instead of hooking this up there, we now hook this up down here. We have the green wire connecting it, like so. And then finally, we hook this up. Currently, it's got 547, so we can hook that up there. Bump. And it should... Ooh, have we done this wrong? Oh, that's incorrect. As long as train is equal to 0, when there isn't a train here, then you can pass that through. And then that will trigger the summoning of a train. Now, there isn't a lot of stone here. We can test this system, though, if we particularly want to. We'd have to create a quick bypass so that we can release the train as well. Let's pop that down. We'll just hook that up there. Have that on a green signal. And turn it off for the time being. But we can see if this works. Now, all we're testing here is if we can get a train from there to here, because all trains currently have to go through the station. There isn't a choice. We will get to testing that in a moment. Let's just make sure that this system by itself actually works. What have we worked on? We are working on the stackers. Very well. Let's work a little bit further on. Stack inserter capacity +1. Sure. Well, actually, let's see. Is there anything else we really want to work on? not particular. We could get a car. Honestly, I feel we need a car. I'm having to do a lot of walking back and forth to the base right now. Eventually, I won't, but right now I do, and I don't like it. I don't like it one little bit. Now, we've got plenty of stone being passed through here, but when this triggers, this one will pass out a signal of send a train, but the green wire is going to be our guide wire. And so that one should just have... Well, we're outputting C on a signal 1 right now. Okay. Well, what we could do easily then is... when there is a signal of C, we convert that to... Well, actually, no, that's exactly the signal we want. See, it's very easy to get caught up. I was thinking, oh, we need to convert that to a signal of stone. No, that would guide fully laden trains full of stone to this station. No, we want to send the signal letting them know that we want a cargo train down here. That is all we want there. Notice train hasn't left. That's because we haven't hooked up the signals incorrectly. Hooray us! Now we can hook this one up right there. And a train shouldn't leave yet either. Ah, glorious times are these. Glorious ones. Right. So, at this point, we want to break this signal here. And then, there we are. No train is left. I'm guarded against the possibility. This should summon a train. Let's wait for the signal to have reached, the clock to have worked its way through, and there we are. Signal has been received. Train has been dispatched. This will run on down, and it'll check out the... it'll start loading up there. Now, I am actually going to... well, we could go up there. We can wait a little bit and see if that's going to dispatch another train. It shouldn't. Let's hope it doesn't, at the very least. Now that there's a train here, though, this is no longer passing on any of the stone signals inside. So it shouldn't be possible that another train would be sent. But it's always wise to be prepared for the very, very worst. Right. I'm really sorry. You did a very good job, I must confess. Very good job. I am impressed. But I need to steal all the stone. Thank you very much. You can actually go back. Ooh. You know what? The other thing you can do is you can shut down loading of the station whilst there's a train there, if you particularly want to. I'm not a massive fan of that, but it is something you can do. See, I want to load it up. Let's be very, very, very sneaky right now. Let's just hook this up right there. There. Enable if T is not equal to 0. Okay. It's not what I want right now, but I want to be able to know that this place is going to be loaded only once I've left. Right, let's go. I want to go and check something. There we are. Let's see if another train leaves the station. No, it hasn't yet. There we go. Fantastic. Let's head on back. We're making progress. Feels good. Well, we should stop in the stacker, I imagine. There we are. Let's just park ourselves. Sorry, I know you were so looking forward to getting to go to the loaded stacker. I imagine basically all the trains in the cargo stacker are like the little trains, just waiting to prove themselves, and then they graduate to being big trains when they get to go to the loaded stacker. And you had such high expectations, and I've just dashed them. I'm so sorry. I'm going to need to name all much. I really wish you could. Oh my lord. I wish you could name the trains. I'd be able to showcase my extensive knowledge of Thomas the Tank Engine. It'd be grand. Right, have we got... yeah, everything looks good up here. Though, one thing I did change is currently... before we had the clock always running, I've actually switched it to only running when there is a train in the station, just to reduce the CPU cycles, because if something is happening on the circuit network, it has to be tracked. It has to be kept abreast of. We can't research that. That is a bit of a shame, because that would actually be kind of useful for us. We could go for flammables. Maybe then one day we get the flamethrower, but that's quite far away right now. The tool belt slots, sure, we'll go for that. Now, what do I need to make a car? I really would like one. I must confess, it would be grand. Let's see, what are you? I need just 8 engine units. Very well, off I go to get 8 engine units.
I'm done with walking everywhere.
It's really tiring, and I am full of confidence with my system, so I am going to walk down the tracks, just to prove how confident I am that I am not going to be murdered. Right, don't need that there. In fact, don't need this there anymore, thanks to the way that we've set this up now. Right, down here, should be able to find ourselves a quick car. Some engines, rather. Grab you. I mean, a car eventually, but there we go. I will have one car. I don't need any more engines. Thank you. You can have them back. There we are. Do I now have a car? Oh, this is fantastic. Can I rotate it around? I don't want it facing the wrong way. There we go. Just load you up. I'll pop a little bit more in there. We'll also pop in. That's amazing. Can I shoot? Can I shoot? Do I need to put? Surely, vehicle machine gun. Do I need to put my machine gun in there? No. Well, I mean, I shoot. Oh, it's probably that I'm just not facing anything that I can shoot. Of course, of course. It's remarkable how quickly you forget things. Right, okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to test the actual logic of finding its path. Now, you'll notice that the green cable only comes up to here because you don't need it going into the dispatcher. It only needs to go as far as there are choices to be made. Now, the final part of this episode, it's going to be a bit of a long one. I do apologize for that, though. Hopefully some of you are actually quite pleased with it. But the final part is we are actually going to implement a dispatcher right here, a router right here, that will be responsible for deciding if the train that we're dispatching actually has anywhere to go. This will guard against the very unlikely, but no less, we should still account for it, the very unlikely situation whereby the dispatcher has launched a train that has nowhere to go. All dressed up and nowhere to go. So, let's get to doing this then. We want to dig all of this back. Well, actually, that needs to stay there. Right, we'll go all the way back up here. We'll pop these down in a different layout momentarily. Right, so, on that. About there, actually. Yeah, that'll do. Whomp. There we go. Right, now we just need to hook all of this up. Now, there are green wires over here. Well, that's just fine because they can go down that far. They're not going to be a terrible issue. Is that going to work? Yes, it will. Glorious. We're going to want the chain signals right there. We are going to want this right here. And then another one just down there. Is that in the right spot? Yes, it is. And then finally, another one just over there. Now then, this is only... is it going to carry the red signal? Ah, it might do. So we may need a bypass chain of power poles. And that's fine. Again, you don't need to have them hooked up to the power network. So you can just do something like this if you want to. And in fact, I do. So let's just go ahead and disconnect all of this. We don't want power flowing along these lines. They are strictly there to carry a signal. But we do want power moving down through here. That part is completely okay. That's how we're going to be powering our base on the other side. So we want the red wire that is summoning the trains to just go up and around the station. There we go. And then carry on its merry way to alert the dispatcher of a requested train at some point. Tool belt is finished. Marvelous. What are we going to work on next then? Landfill, I guess. I will probably never use it because I actually enjoy working with the lay of the land rather than against it. There we are. And we're going to need a little bit more on that side as well. Perfect. I'd hook you guys up. There we go. That's everything we need on that side. Going to need to get rid of these trees. Sorry, trees. I do like keeping you. No, I do. But when needs must. Right. Those ones can stay, though. Right. We want... Oh, it's rather awkward seeing what I'm meant to be laying down here at this point. I must confess, it is a little bit of a potch. Is this the right direction? Or is it the other way I've got to do this? I think it's this way. I think. I believe that might be correct. I'm pretty sure it's correct. Right. Well, we also need a little bit of power moving along here, don't we? Let's bring this along. We'll hook this up to about here. And then hopefully get that to connect just down here as well. Let's get you in position. There we are. And I know that's it's quite a hodgepodge there, but that should hook everything up correctly. Though, why are these? Oh, that's why. I was laying this because they were flashing that they didn't have any power. And I was a little bit confused because I haven't laid the medium power poles. So no, we don't need this. Redundancy never hurts, but let's avoid laying down unnecessary power poles right now because it's just going to confuse matters. But having the extra tool belt slots, oh so good. Oh so gloriously good. Right, there we go. Power is being served. We're going to want a light there. There we are. Was there not meant to be a connection of power between these two? I do believe there was. Yes, there was. Oh, it was when we changed some of the power poles there, it kind of messed up a little bit. But that's fine. There we go. That will do. Right. So, that's all hooked up, though that's in red. Yep, that's all okay. Next up, we are going to want the arithmetic combinators. Generally facing down this way, I believe. There we are. And one there. The decider combinators next. So. And finally, the last arithmetic combinator. And, oh dear, put it the wrong way around. Oh well, we can easily redo that by just placing this like so. And it'll place that ghosted image down so you can try again. There we are. Because of course, that needs to feed back any of these signals outside so we know that there is a green signal and that gets passed onto the station. That should all be... Oh no, it's not being correctly named. Let's set that up. Everything else should be named about it. It may be that I didn't specify that it needed to preserve the name of the station. Drat. I'll redo that blueprint in a moment, and then that should be fine. Right, at this point, we want to allow this to be able to feed straight back to the routing to the main dispatcher. There we are. These are the two routes. This one, all this one needs to do is to pick up whether or not we have the cargo that is being requested. It looks like I might need to redesign that blueprint actually. That's a bit of a shame. We could pop it there instead. Okay, we'll pop it there, but I'm going to remove these ghosted images there. That should sort this out. We'll also remove the station just in case. Just in case. We don't actually want that one to be there. There we go. And we're going to want to pass along. This will be the signal from here that's being passed down to let us know that we have what the train currently is carrying. This one will be the green signal that should allow us to know what lies beyond this point, what stations lie beyond this point, what they're requesting. So that is currently requesting cargo, so that will be passed through. We'll pop down a medium power pole right here. There we go. That is all powered up now. Perfect. We are going to want to pass down the power pole from there. It's not particularly beautifully wired. I do appreciate that. But hopefully it isn't terrible. In fact, at this point, we'll just have the power move along there instead. Well, actually, yeah, we could have it just hop between these. That's not necessarily a problem. There we go. And hook that back all the way over there. There we are. And then the signal goes into place. Perfect. So this is currently requesting cargo. This... we need an extra signal on this side. That will then allow this. That is just one massive chain block. It's not a particularly good setup. I will be perfectly honest that it's not a particularly good setup. We also want a fail-safe signal over here, which is just going to run off whether this signal is green or not. So let's hook that one up here. We'll grab you. Pop that one there. Again, we don't want this one carrying a current. Ooh, my bad. That one wasn't connected. Let's just disconnect over here. There we are. It is finicky to keep having to disconnect the power, but it is incredibly important to try and just keep down the wire spaghetti, because as you can see, it's already getting out of hand. And I'm not even doing that much yet. Right, there we go. Now, we're going to want to pass along. This is... That should be showing up there as green, or it will be once it passes down. Is this set to read signal? Yes, it is. So, if that is green, that gets passed along. And we want a decider combinator over here. Just to work out if we receive a green signal. Oh, I guess we actually do need that to be powered. I keep forgetting. There we are. So, as long as signals, well, if a signal is above 0 at all, green signal, then output O on 1. And this should close in that case. Yeah. Close the signal if O is anything is 1, is greater than 0. That's fine. And then this needs to be passed along up here. The red signal down here can be just straight up passed back, connected up there. Whereas this one needs to pass along in a bit more of a winding route and connect up on the green. There we go. I do deeply apologize for the spaghetti. I'm almost embarrassed. Almost. There we go. That is currently showing that we've got a green signal. Everything is fine. Okay, right then. So, if we now trigger the system, it should work. Should work. Maybe. Let's go and have a quick look. Can we trigger the system at all from over here? No, we wouldn't be able to. That is a bit of a shame, because I really, really, really would like to see it. What we can do is we can trick the system if we want to, and I do. So let's just go ahead and set up a very quick pulse generator. There we go. There we are. And we need 2 of these. Perfect. All right, that's currently the only pulse we want to send out is C. Currently off. There we go. And that can hook up there. All right then, let's turn that on. We want a cargo train. We are actually requesting a cargo train, even though we haven't sent the signal for one. Let's see how this works out where everything's going. There we are. Should passing it along, and off goes the train. Marvelous. Now, when that one gets there, it's going to request another. It's not going to request another train, and I don't believe that train can actually leave. Or did I immediately tell it to leave? We'll see now if that immediately leaves. Ah, drat down blast. Test failed. Test failed due to human error. Okay, I'm going to quickly go and fix that. Oh, I will try not to drive into the rocks. I was focusing too much on not driving along with the tracks, because as much as I'm confident playing chicken as a person, ironically, I'm much less confident about doing it when I'm in a car. Not sure how that works, but okay. Let's adjust this to 400. There's 400 stone here. Summon a train. There we go. A train has been summoned. Glorious. But this is why you don't want these stops on such a high tick time. It takes so long for anything to happen. You could easily do it with a third that, easily. There we go. You're now loading. Perfect. It's not even slightly perfect. But it's fine. We discovered that the anomaly, it was just that the inserters had picked up stone in the rush to try and load the train, and then the train had left, and so they were just left with nothing to do but hold on to the stone, which was throwing everything else off. But as a result, the guidance signal is no longer being sent along that route, and if a new train was summoned. Now, we've already seen what will happen, but we'll do it anyway, just for completeness sake. The next train will be sent down, and we'll just head straight back up to the dispatcher, because it's got nowhere to go. So there we are. The system is, as far as we've given it not a particularly complicated route, but the system is, for all intents and purposes, working as intended. Now, between this episode and the next, I'm going to go and lay down a bunch of signals along this route, just so that there's plenty of stops for trains to stack up along the track, rather than just one enormous block, which constitutes the entirety of that route. And also, I will set up the mining operation. It's just going to be laying down miners, so it's not going to be anything too interesting to see. But when you return, hopefully, we will have gotten a couple of name suggestions for the new stone mining town. And we will be able to name the town, christen it, as well as develop the unloading station. Once we've done both of those, then we can start looking at redesigning the loading and indeed the unloading station. In fact, the unloading station is generally going to be universal no matter what. But certainly the loading station could be improved so that it can handle, again, multiple different types of cargoes simultaneously, which is going to be quite an important one. But that's going to be it from me. So I do hope you've enjoyed this episode, rambly as it was. A lot of electric wire spaghetti. But hopefully this has been informative. Do let me know down in the comments if I may have sped through certain things and you want to get some further clarity, and I'll be happy to answer those. But until next time, and as always, do take care, everyone.